Today's date, Thursday, June 23rd, 2022 at 6:14 p.m. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the record, Board Member Roman Ferguson will not be in attendance this evening. Board Member Zamar Brown. Board Member Francis McIntyre.
Here.
Board Member Nikita Nixon. Board Member George Suarez. Board Member Alexander Van Meckel.
Here.
Board Member Nikisha Williams.
Present.
Vice Chair Otis Alexander. Chair Markeisha Finn.
Present.
Attendance confirmed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay. I want to move on and have a moment of silence. Thank you. We're going to now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, will there be any add-on items? With that, I take it as a no. We will move forward to the approval of our last board meeting. Madam Clerk, in my packet, I see minutes dated September 28, 2001.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. We do have to approve those minutes. That's for September, and I will be bringing forth the April minutes because I wanted to make sure I had more detailed information.
Okay, did we not approve the September meeting and the last one from April? I remember approving something.
No, ma'am, we approved the June reading minutes, so now we have to approve the September meeting minutes.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yes, ma'am.
Board members, if you would like to look over the minutes for September briefly, then we can move on. Will there be a motion to approve the minutes? Yeah, I wasn't here yet. From the board members that are present, we have two that were not present here during that time. So I do want to welcome those that are here and new. I've welcomed you previously, but I'm sorry, I want to back up just for a second and welcome our newest board member. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you. You bring all of your passion that will be your expertise shortly to our board. I really appreciate that. Looking at the minutes for September, I myself was not in attendance. So I would have to really look into these meeting minutes before I approve them. I'm sure they're okay. Member McIntyre, were you present on that meeting?
Yes.
You feel comfortable with approving, making the motion to approve?
I so move.
Okay, did she motion to approve? Okay, so board member Francis motion to approve, we need a second.
I'll go ahead and second.
Okay, moved by board member McIntyre, second by Chair Finn. Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Thank you.
Board member Alexander Van Mel,
Yes.
board member Nikisha Williams,
Yes.
board member Francis McIntyre,
Yes.
Chair Finn,
Yes.
minutes passed.
Awesome. All right, this time we're going to open up the floor to any public comments that you may all have. And we would like to limit those comments to probably what, 2 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, so the floor is now open for any public comments. All right, with no comments, we're going to close the floor and move forward. We're moving on to the resolutions that have been presented. And the first resolution.
I'll read into the record. A resolution of the City of Opa-locka Historic Environmental Preservation Board approving issuance of a certificate of appropriateness for the structure at 910 Jan Avenue to allow for the closure of the terrace, legalize the secondary living unit in rear of property, legalize the pavers and legalize the pergola, and interior renovations on registered historic property, providing for an effective date.
Thank you so much.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the property owner for this particular site is here. So if you have any questions regarding some of the changes that they are requesting in order to get this particular certificate of appropriateness, they are available to address those questions.
Thank you. Will the property owner step forward? Can you come on down? Thank you so much.
Madam Chair?
My name is,
You're
sorry,
gonna
my name
need-
is Chunilal Ramkisoon, and I'll be
need
speaking
a-
on
I'm
behalf
sorry,
of the.
1 second, please.
I need a motion to pick up the item. A motion in a second.
I'm going to motion to pick up on public comments for this resolution only. Do I move?
I will second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Chair Fan, and it's going to be second by Board Member Williams for discussion now.
On this resolution only.
Okay. Proceed.
Yes, my name is Chunilal Ramkisoon, and I'm speaking on behalf of the owner, Mr. Julio Gomez. I am not sure as to what additional information the board requires. However, on behalf of the owner and his family, we just wanted to clarify that the additional structures or the structures that are here on the property, we believe that not only enhances the environment or the neighborhood, but it also makes this property in such a way that it ensures the continued residence of this family and their other families in this great city. And this is one of the reasons why these structures were there, is to ensure that Mr. Gomez and his wife, but also their children, can reside and continue to reside in this great city of Opa-locka.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm curious to know, I believe that we are ultimately legalizing work that has already been done. Can you
Yes.
explain to us why this wasn't brought to the board previously for approval before the work was done?
The additional work that was done, based on my information from the owner, I've been spoken to him, is that he had hired different individuals to perform the work, who informed him that all the required permits will be done for the most part. However, only after most of it was completed, he is realized, and afterwards, after the city has indicated to him, of course, this is a violation, then he hired the engineering company to get the plans together. But it was not an intentional, in any way, slap in the face of the officials or the city, but it was a sort of inadvertent, and for which the owner himself is, sorry about that, but it's here, and the intent of it was to provide a better residence, as I said before, and to make sure that the property serves this family continually. But there's no explanation as to why it was done the way it was done.
Thank you.
I have a question. With the work that has already been done, is it preserving the historic the historic look on the property? Does it take away the historic presence that's there?
Not at all, because we had not, the facade of the prevailing structure, the main residence has not been changed. Everything as can be seen has been done towards the rear of the property. And mostly for the better utilization of the property. But in fact, the residence as it is maintained.
Board members, will there be any more questions addressed?
Has professional staff reviewed this? And do they have a recommendation?
Good question.
Mr. Lee will come up and make a presentation regarding this particular property and staff's recommendation.
Gerald Lee, City of Opa-locka, Planning and Community Development Department, zoning official. The modifications that have been requested are not supported by staff. But here is an issue that they've already completed everything that they're asking for. I guess they're requesting after the fact to have the historic board approve what they've already done. And I'm not sure that it doesn't set up the wrong precedents as to other property owners saying, yeah, I'll just do it. Then I'll go and ask for permission or approval after the fact. The board is now active, and probably in the past, maybe it wouldn't have been addressed. But that's neither here nor there. We are here and we are addressing. And the requirements.
Excuse me, can you speak a little closer to the mic?
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
having hard time understanding you.
No problem. As I was saying, the majority of the work that they have done was done without the historic board's approval or the city's approval. And it is our opinion that it sets the wrong precedent to just automatically approve because they're coming now to address the changes that they made on the property. That being said, the process is to bring it before this board to address so that your recommendation can go to the city commission so they can make a final decision as to what should or should not happen, whether that's to restore the property to its original form, or whether it's to approve certain things and not approve certain other things, but that is in your purview. Our recommendation is that this not be approved. And just like certain other things that we encounter, if it doesn't follow what the code requires, then we just don't support it. It's not that we can't understand it, but if it doesn't follow the logic, what the code requires, then the department's response is always with the code. And the code says these changes have to be approved by the board and approved by the commission for them to be approved.
So I understand what you're saying,
Yes, ma'am.
but what happens? This has already been done. So now we have to go backwards. What happens now that this has already been done? You're not in support of it, but if it's been done as a structure, what's our next step? How do we go back if we do not approve?
I would refer to Mr. Gregory Gay, who may have a little more experience in relation to the question that you're now asking, because the items that they're talking about, they have a secondary living unit in the rear. That's not a major issue. Legalizing paver is not an issue, but some of the other exterior things may take away from the historic values of the property. So, Mr. Gay.
Members of the board, Gregory Gay. This is somewhat of a quagmire that we are starting to run into as it relates to some of our historic properties. In a lot of cases, what you'll be finding out with this particular, especially with this particular application, is that the property owner was not really aware that the property was of a historic significance. So they basically took it upon themselves to move forward and do whatever improvements they felt was necessary to be done. And we're also finding out that in a lot of these cases, the property owners have not even gone through the permitting process in order to, receive the proper permits for the changes that they've suggested. Adding a second structure does require that you will have permits to go through that particular process. It will have to go through a site plan review, and in a lot of cases, a development agreement. We're finding ourselves where in a lot of these particular cases, these property owners have been cited by code. So they're already subject to the work that's already been done without a permit, and they have to go through that particular process. And then in addition to that, with it being a historic property, we have to present it to you all, and you have to take it through its review process itself. As Mr. Lee has stated, we're always going to side on the side of the code. And as it relates to this particular site, we cannot make a recommendation for this particular project to be approved as it stands right now. There may be some things that could be modified. And as the applicant said earlier, they have not made any modifications to the front of the structure, which is the part that in a lot of cases, when it comes to historic preservation, it's the exterior of the property that is most significant. So while there was no modifications to the front structure, as it is seen from the right of way, there may have been modifications to the side and to the rear of the property, especially the addition of the second structure. I've had experience in other municipalities where if the properties were not taken through the proper process and they had been cited by code, that they would be subject to removal of those particular things because they had not gone through the proper process for approval. Now, that may seem to be a little extreme in some cases, and there is, evidence that it has to go through that particular process, but we do have the latitude, and we're presenting it to the board so that we would at least get your recommendation on record as this particular application will continue to go through the process and go before the city commission. But the final ruling at the end of the day, you are a recommending board, so you can make a recommendation for these items to be considered, or you can recommend for these items to be not considered, not approving it, and then for this particular application to move forward before the city commission. I believe the city manager who's with us today wants to chime in on this.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Madam Chair. Darvin Williams, City Manager. I'd like to know if staff has been able to review the work that has been done to find out what would they allow and permit and what they'd like to make recommendations for changes on so that the board can consider a fully baked item as far as the recommendations. That'd be my one suggestion, Madam Chair.
Thank you. That actually was my next question. I wanted to know if we could make that suggestion so that we can send someone over to look at it, see if it's visible from a side angle, to see how the additional structure has been put. I strongly recommend that we not, myself, move forward with it because we don't want to set that precedence, as you stated. We are trying to preserve, we're trying to keep Opa-locka strong. There is not per se in a negative way that you added the additions, so you did the modifications without knowing that you had to do it. So I can't say, oh, you knew, like he said, but and going strong with Opa-locka and being a resident myself, it's a love for our city that we want to keep here. And if we don't do it like that, we're going to find ourselves in limbo where other property owners are going to do the same thing and they're going to claim they did not know. So we got to find a way to ensure that property owners know and that they abide by what's set for them to do. My recommendation is to have the city to go out and take a look and bring back what they find or what they see from the exterior portions. But again, board members, it's up to you.
Yeah, Chairwoman. So I would welcome staff going out and taking a look, but I think I can tell you I am in support and agreement of the recommendations that I'm hearing, which is that this shouldn't be approved in setting precedents. So part of me says, yes, it would be great to know that information, but I am not sure, to be very honest, that that would change my decision just because we can't see it from the front, right? Then does that mean that people are doing things on the backside of their property that is illegal, right? We are setting a precedence here. And at the end of the day, as I look at this resolution, there's none of this that I feel like knowing that the work was structurally sound, et cetera, would make me say that we should approve it. So I feel comfortable going ahead and acting on this resolution. I'd love to hear from the other board members.
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask a question of Mr. Lee. if it's
Sure.
okay. Mr. Lee, I apologize if I didn't catch this from the onset. How was this brought to the attention of the city? Was it on the own volition of the homeowner that rectified it, or was he fined by code for the work that he did on his property?
The information was given to the department as a permit for the legalization of things on the property. And knowing that it was a historic property, I informed the contractor that this particular item would have to go through this process, and that's how we got here.
The reason I asked the question is because, you know, I'm torn between setting the precedent, but also just rectifying something that, as a citizen, I bear witness to at the last meeting where this was also brought up. And I feel like some work should have already been done to address some of the questions that we're talking about tonight in terms of going out to the home, having other concerns about some of the modifications that were made. I would like to think that at this point and seeing it in this form, that it's checked all the boxes, if you will, to allow us to just move forward with it. Specifically, in speaking on historic preservation, I can say wholeheartedly, and in referencing archives that specifically provide evidence of what 910 Jam historically and originally was supposed to look like, the home does not look like today what it once did. And I understand that we hold our sites near and dear. I know that better than many. But at the same time, it's a balance between preserving, most specifically curbside appeal and the facade of these homes, which is the main battle that Opa-locka has right here and now, and also looking forward to the future and progress. It's a complementary of the two. So I'm conflicted once more, because are we setting the precedent for someone to do the work and then do the right thing by coming to the city, by providing all this copious documentation for that work, and for it to be subjected to this board to consider for the grounds of historic preservation? When we talk about preservation, we don't have the guidelines specific to a home like this to know exactly what modifications or recommendations the city would have for what this addition was ultimately, how it ended up looking. So in my personal opinion, I don't see reason to hold up a permit that is simply trying to rectify a wrong. And so long as people are doing that, and I understand that there's checks and balances and there are permits to properly and procedurally put through the measures, the additions that I bear witness to at this property are hardly visible from the street, arguably. The main focus from a historic preservation standpoint is the facade of this house, which has virtually remained untouched. And that would be my concern more than anything, again, as it solely relates to historic preservation, which is what we're here to discuss. It's unfortunate that we also have to evaluate other elements of homes that don't necessarily fall in our expertise or purview, but here we are. So I'd like to think that staff have provided this once more in the form of this resolution where it's acceptable enough that this homeowner can live happily and healthy in this space when there's a handful of these homes that are not getting the level of care that I know that he's providing to this home. That is my 2 cents.
Thank you, board member. Totally agree with what they're saying. And I do like the fact that you have taken the initiative to have an upkeep of your home. So I do want to say that. Curious for board member McIntyre, you have any comments on it? No? Okay, so.
Well, let me say, yes, I do.
Oh,
I'd like to see us try to work with this homeowner to find a resolution that we can all live with. We have to be careful that the preservation board doesn't become an enemy. We're an ally and a partner. And so we certainly don't want to punish you, but we do want to follow the law and the code. So if we can figure out a way to do that, let's do it.
sounds great. Go from here. We want to put this to a vote.
Madam Chair,
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'd like to recommend that the board consider deferring this item to give the Community Development Department and time to make recommendations on what would be appropriate and what is not appropriate and what would need to be changed.
I
I
think
concur.
that's fair enough. Okay.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Chair, may I? Okay, so just for clarification, we will be deferring this item? Okay, all right, I just want to be sure.
I think we have to vote on it though.
Exactly, okay.
Okay, so somebody make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, who moved it? It was moved by Board Member Mack, and who second?
He moved, I'll second.
Okay. Okay, Board Member McIntyre,
Yes.
Board Member Mickle,
Yes.
Board Member Williams,
Yes.
Chair Fern,
Yes,
item deferred.
thank you so much. Moving on to the next resolution that was presented. Madam Attorney.
A resolution of the City of Opa-locka Historic Environmental Preservation Board approving issuance of a certificate of appropriateness for the structure at 721 Shara Avenue to allow a 149 square foot addition and for the replacement or installation of 13 windows and 2 exterior doors on this registered historic property, providing for an effective date.
Is the property owner here?
Presentation from staff first and then go to them. Would that be possible?
Sure. Okay, I'm sorry. One of our board members recommended that we get the staff presentation first.
Okay. I think he stepped up.
And a motion as well to pick up the item.
So we're gonna have a motion to pick that item up. But is staff here?
He just stepped up.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Lee stepped out for a moment. However, as the attorney stated, we will need a motion
Or maybe Mr. Gay. is
and
Mr. Gay
someone.
there?
Yes, he's here. Mr. Gay, is there any recommendation on this item before we have her to speak? Oh, he's on, okay,
Mr. Lee is here. He's going to give us the staff's recommendation.
thank you.
Gerald Lee, Planning and Community Development Department, zoning official. On this property,
Sorry, Mr. Lee, if you could, sir, could you please speak in the mic?
yes.
Thank you.
Okay. This particular item is for certain restorative improvements on the property, the replacement of some doors, a couple of doors and windows, but it also includes a rear expansion of the master bedroom at the rear of the house. We're talking about a total of 149 square feet that will be added to the rear of the property. The difference is none of these things have taken place. And they are coming to this board to say, I have a historic property. I respect my property. I want to do the right thing. And I want your permission or your recommendations so that I can make the changes that are alluded to in the documents that you have before you. City staff is in agreement with what they're asking to do. The addition of the expansion of that back bedroom is to improve some things within the house, and they're doing some internal renovations also, but the internal renovations are not a part of what we actually care about unless it brings multiple units of residential in a zone that doesn't permit it. And what they're doing is the expansion and improvement of the internal workings of the house and adding windows, new windows and doors to the property. And the city is in support, and community development recommends approval. And we support this particular application. Mr. Gay, if you have any other comment.
Thank you. Okay, a motion to open the floor so that we
Second.
can speak to the actual property owner.
Second.
Welcome.
Deborah Marcano. I'm the property owner.
Okay, so we did get our recommendation from the city. My question is, I see that it says 13 windows and some of those windows will be towards the front.
Mhm.
And they will keep the look, the style, the feel of the mosaic of our city. I want to say that I am in support of it. I see that this in addition to, and we have to know that the upkeep of our homes is very important, and we also have to live comfortably, and you are coming the proper way. So I am in support of it. I'm looking over. I know my board members may have some questions for you. So I'm gonna let them.
So the addition was actually started by the previous homeowner. And it's, the foundation is already there. There's actually a tub and some sinks that are still in my yard from when the owner started it's a bathroom.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
it's a little hard to hear you. Can you speak into the mic or
Okay,
speak up?
can you hear
please?
me now?
That's a little bit better, yes.
Okay. So the previous owner started the foundation for the bathroom, and that's already there. It's visible. There's a bathtub and 2 sinks that he purchased to make the bathroom renovation. So that's what the addition is. The foundation's already there. So I just want to complete what was started by the previous owner.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I am excited for this for 2 reasons. One, the Roy Helms House is one of the city's oldest homes, and I commend you and thank you for putting in a significant investment in this. As an owner of a historic property, I know the expense and I appreciate the work that you're doing to this. There's a lot of great information here. Second, the reason I'm also excited is that the research that I've done has afforded me the opportunity to definitively state that your home is one of the most authentically appearing of all the ones that remain in this city. There have been very slight, if any, modifications to this home in particular. So I am inclined to support everything that I see here in this package. This might be a question more so for Mr. Lee, Madam Chair, but you're welcome to address this as well. As it relates to preservation, authenticity, but also just curbside appeal. I'm curious to know if there's more to this packet that we're not seeing as far as the schedule of the design of the windows, or if these inserts that we see here are the style that's already been chosen. And the reason I ask that in particular, as you can imagine, regarding preservation is the home has a very specific of its style and of its period, has a specific design. I don't know if there's an opportunity of making a solid recommendation on that, or if it's already been done, I don't know. I just don't see a detail of the schedule for the windows or the front door specifically, unless I'm missing something.
Is that for me to respond? So I am open if the board tells me these are the selections that I have to choose from as far as window replacement, door replacement. These are the companies that you may even recommend that I use that have been used by other homeowners. I have not made a formal selection of windows. I just know that they have to be replaced.
Gotcha. So this is more so the schematic of what's intended, not so much what has already been purchased.
Right, nothing has been purchased.
I see. I understand. I also understand, I don't think we're in an official capacity, we can make specific recommendations of contractors, but
Okay.
I think that there's a great opportunity, perhaps the first of many more to come for historic homeowners specifically, where Mr. Gay and others from his department could provide you with specific recommendations based on your home's original blueprints. And again, I think if there's to be a compromise for what Opa-locka's preservation standards will look like, it's that the curbside appeal should be as authentic as humanly possible. What I can tell you is that colonial style windows are very happening, both for historic and modern homes.
Okay.
They're very easy to come by and very consistent in cost for any other window selection. It's just a matter of the selection that you end up choosing. So as far as I understand, and as it stands, I have no objection to the plans that I see, so long as Mr. Gay and his department work alongside you to help inform the decisions specifically concerning curbside. That's it for me.
Thank you. Any other board members?
Madam Chairwoman,
Yes.
if I could just make a statement. It is our hopes that we are able to work with the property owners and try to make the modifications as it relates to historic properties as close to the level of authenticness as they were originally. As you may know, when it comes to windows and doors, there have been numerous modifications as it relates to having those windows and doors serve as protection, and they have to meet a certain criteria that is established by Miami-Dade County. So there are in some cases where you have to make a decision whether you're going to meet the county's modification or requirements for safety versus the design that will be most closely resembling what was historically significant. I know that's been an issue with several properties. We want to be able to make sure that it's something that will still be one in the affordability of the applicant, as well as, you know, continuing that visual effect of what the historic property is continuing to present to the community overall. So we have to basically try to work as closely as possible. We don't want to put them in a position where we're going to recommend windows or doors that, because of the criteria of safety, puts it beyond the affordability of the applicant. So we have to work very, very closely within that framework. Not necessarily saying that this applicant is going to go to Home Depot and buy it off the shelf because they may be readily available. And I have a personal experience with historic properties that you can't buy stuff off the shelf at Home Depot because historic properties are just that unique as it relates to the sizing and what you're trying to achieve to retain that level of authenticness. So I just want to let the board know that we will work closely with the property owner to make sure that their selection is the most appropriate selection and affordable for them.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the building code has a section on historic structures that provides the opportunity for some exceptions to the code. Not so much with windows, but there's a little opening there. And I think that original windows can be restored under that code. They may require a storm shutter or some kind of hurricane protection over that, or in addition to that, but original windows can be restored and may not cost more to do than to buy a reasonable window from Home Depot. So don't overlook that option or that possibility.
Thank you.
Okay, so right now for this resolution, board members, will we move?
I'd like to move.
Okay, moved by Board Member Mecken, who's second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Williams. Okay. Board Member McIntyre,
Yes.
Board Member Meckel,
Emphatically, yes.
Board Member Williams,
Yes.
Chair Fan,
Yes.
item passed.
Great. I can't wait to see.
All right,
when it's
thank
all
you.
done. Good. Okay, thank you. Moving right along to our last resolution here. Madam Attorney.
Resolution of the City of Opa-locka Historic Environmental Preservation Board approving the 2021 annual report, providing for an effective date.
Thank you.
Board members, Gregory Gay. We'd like to present before you our annual report, which is required to be submitted to Miami-Dade County. We are a little tardy as it relates to this particular report, but charge the tardiness to our heads and not necessarily to our hearts. We had all intentions to have this report done in a timely manner. Some of the updates in regards to this particular report, it speaks to the new ordinance or the updating of the ordinance that we did a few months ago in relationship to making our ordinance consistent with the Miami-Dade County ordinance. We were able to get that achieved. We actually have made some modifications to our legislation along with the design guidelines and standards that were also approved not too long ago. So those are pretty much the highlights that are to be reflected within this particular report. If you have any other questions or concerns that you would like to have staff address, we will address it at this time.
So my first comment on section 2, page HEPB 120, under staffing, where we've listed interim city manager Darvin Williams for the 2020-2021 staff. I just wondered if I'm not mistaken, he joined us in 2022, so we probably should not list him.
Yes, that is a correction that will need to be made. I think I got a little bit ahead of myself.
I'd also like to ask a question in regards to the thoroughness of the registry of historic sites. I'm trying to figure out the best way of framing this. There are some notable structures that have been long documented in Opa-locka's history that are not reflected in this current historic database, if you will, the property addresses specifically. And I was curious to know if there was a reason predating my involvement, perhaps others on this board, as to why they may not be reflected in this list.
Through the chair, the list that is provided was the list of the 34 properties that were initially identified as historic properties when the legislation was first done in 1991. Since that time, there have been, I believe, 3 or 4 properties that we've lost to either natural disaster or demolition by neglect and some of those things. But we do know that there are other properties within the city of Opa-locka. Matter of fact, it's more than 20 that were built during the same time period, but because they may not have retained the level of historic fabric as a part of their facade or as a part of their exterior, for some reason, they were not included in this initial list. It is our hope that we could work with some of the property owners who reside in those particular properties and help them to find some funding or have some type of initiative to explore bringing those properties back up to their historic significance as far as their exterior is concerned. And then at that point, have them reapply to be a part of the historic structure within the city of Opa-locka.
Understandable. Objectively, I have no issues with the report. I mean, I have plenty of issues, but I have no issues in delivering it because I know it's due. I just would like to know what our role and participation could look like for revisiting this list. I've already called out some missing properties that I very much do believe are registered. 705 and 706 Shahar Avenue are an example of that. The CE Longhouse around the corner recently acquired is another one that's not reflected. I'm just curious to know what our role could look like in being a part of the next round of a report, because there are copious amounts of and detailed accounts written mostly and archival that have already accounted for several of these addresses and their original property owners' names, including 806 Jam, my own. The History of Miami, where I was at this afternoon, Emily Perry was responsible for a lot of the research that was done to bring value and credibility to these structures. So again, I have no objections to moving this forward. Just in looking at what a 2022 annual report could look like, I'd like for there to be a more comprehensive list that reflects the work of someone that put a lot of time and effort to authenticate the properties and their original names. In addition, I understand that there are buildings that are no longer standing for a variety of reasons, but I would argue, again, for a 2022 edition, that there should be an endangered list on this. 1121 Perry Street, for instance, which is very much on this list, or 1211, I apologize, is on the verge of collapse objectively. It has no roof, it has no occupants. So I would like there to be consideration by staff to incorporate the research that has been done by others and to take a closer examination because I know that there's a lot that's missing from this list, and I completely hear you, and I understand the 20 that should and could potentially be. But some of those changes have not been significant enough to not merit being on this list since their original design.
Madam Chair, I do believe we have a staff meeting with Mr. Meckel tomorrow. If he would like to bring that list in, this report has not been delivered. We can update it at that time and move forward.
That's a good idea.
And may I suggest that as a part of this report, we can, for those particular properties that have not been designated as historic, we can actually have another section within the report that will speak to properties that were built during the same time period that we are seeking to have a future designation for these particular properties. So that can, in essence, help us. And it helps us in the long run, saying that there are additional properties down the road that we are looking to add to our list of Moorish style architecture within the city overall.
Understandable.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So I'll start off with, I am of the opinion that, I know that we're behind on this. And so I would like to go ahead and get this behind us. We'll approve it. And it'll be my recommendation to proffer an approval contingent upon the updated list that Board Member Van Beckel will provide. In reading through this, though, I do want to share kind of my thoughts. The report felt a little weak to me in the sense that we are listing off a lot of things that we've done over the past 5 or 4 years versus being able to really focus on things that we've done in the past year. I know, the board has not been as active. I know there's lots of reasons. We've been in the middle of COVID, right? Like there's so much that's going on. And so I want to be clear that I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. I just want to raise what I do see in this report. The point that I want to make, though, is that I am really excited, and I feel like you've got passionate folks on this board who are interested in making sure that next year's report is really robust. And as we start to think through, these different sections, I would love to have conversations as a board in terms of what can we do to push historic preservation forward, and what can we do to push environmental protection forward. And so I would love it if, as a board, we are thinking through not just the resolutions that are being presented to us, but if there are perhaps any recommendations that we are making to the board that will help push our city forward and make sure that we are preserving our historic properties, but also looking at environmental preservation. So I guess I say that as something for the board, right? I'd love to kind of energize the board in the work that we're doing. And so if there are no other comments, I would be happy to offer my approval of the report. Or make a motion to do that.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just before you do that, I just want to know if you all are going to be making those changes to the annual report, just proffer them now, and then you'll be able to make your changes.
With that, we have a motion on the floor.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the report inclusive of the updated list that Board Member Van Meckel will provide to staff.
Second.
Second by Chair Finn.
Yes.
Board Member McIntyre,
Yes.
Board Member Meckel,
Yes.
Board Member Williams,
Yes.
Chair Finn,
Yes.
item passed.
Okay, moving on, we will open the floor to board comments. But for a moment, we want to put on record that we do have a board member that is entering. Board Member Suarez.
Okay, so just for the record, I just want to say that Board Member Suarez has joined us. However, Chair, Mr. Gay, I don't know if you want to speak on this discussion item that was provided on the dais for everyone.
Yes, Board, at the last meeting, we talked about doing some things in regards to actually establishing a historic district. And we put together a tentative report for that. I believe it was presented to you all. You may have had an opportunity to read through that information. If there's anything that you see as a part of that report that needs to be modified or updated, we would like to get that back so that we can go ahead and move forward with actually having that particular designation report adopted so that we can move forward in actually having an actual historic district within the city of Opa-locka. It's funny that we have signage that speaks to us having a historic district, but there is no designation report saying that we have a district. It's just a collection of properties. So we want to more or less officially make that established along with the signage that says that we have a district. One of the things that we may be considering in the future, like we have one sign that's actually off of 27th Avenue and Scheherazade that lets you know that you're coming into the historic district. I think it would be most appropriate that if we had another sign at the other end of Scheherazade at Alibaba, so people would actually know from both directions that you are coming into our historic neighborhood, not our historic district. So that's something that we will be hopefully proffering through the city administration to see if we can get some additional signage constructed to actually affect that particular change. But having the designation report will definitely move us a little bit further in making that actually occur. And the last thing, some of you should have received a copy of the Florida Preservationist. And the spring edition of this particular publication features our own city. And the cover is titled Wings Over Opa-locka, which is the original name of the city of Opa-locka. So if you look through it, I believe the article actually starts on page 16. This is something that is really helping to put Opa-locka on the map as not just, a historic community, but a historic community that's making strides in maintaining the historical fabric that is within the community. Some of you may be aware that our city was recently designated as a main street through the city of Opa-locka and in conjunction with the Community Redevelopment Agency. And that particular program really speaks volumes toward historic preservation. So we are looking to utilizing that as a additional resource so that we can hopefully identify funding sources to help some of the property owners who may live in historic homes and not aware that they're living in a historic home. The main thing that, or I should say the main resource that they need is a financial resource to help them in the restoration process. And for some of you who have historic properties, you know, a historic property is something that you have to take care of almost daily. There's always something occurring within a historic home. So I just like to give you all that information. We hear some of the concerns that you have expressed as a part of this particular meeting. We thank you for the information that you provide. We are a small staff, but we are a staff that tries to accomplish this as much as we can in relationship to the preservation of our city. So we appreciate your comments and concerns. And with that, I shall close. And if there's any questions or concerns that you have, I'll address them at this time.
Madam Chair, I have a concern about the district. I'm not quite sure what the criteria is or who sets the criteria for what a district is. But I believe that if it's a National Register district, at least 51% of the structures within a district must be just historic. When I look at a map of Opa-locka structures, they're spread out. There's not many clusters of historic structures. So I'm not sure whether you can do an overall district or whether you might be looking at a thematic district, which I mentioned to you before, about non-contiguous structures that have a common theme, such as Moorish architecture, can be declared a historic district. They don't have to be within certain boundaries. So that's, I'm not sure on the local level who makes the rules for what a historic district is. I should know that, but I don't. So I'm just a little concerned that that may be a bump in the road if we don't address it beforehand. So take a look at that question, and hopefully I'm wrong.
Thank you, Ms. McIntyre. We have had conversations with Miami-Dade County through the Historic Preservation Office, Ms. Cody, and we have been working through this process bit by bit. She has received a draft of the report that we put together. Unfortunately, right now, or should I say fortunately, she's on maternity leave. So we're waiting for her to return. And then upon that, we will go into a more deep dive as it relates to what the requirements are. And you may be correct that we have to have it more of like a hybrid type of district versus a actual true district.
Right.
But we appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Manager and Mr. Gay, I'd be curious if we wanted to workshop ideas as a board. Would that happen at just a regular board meeting? I know that there's sunshine laws. We can't, talk to each other outside of this meeting. Would it be a public workshop? I'd love kind of just your guidance on how we can, as a board, brainstorm, again, kind of going back to this idea of, what are those recommendations that we'd like to make to the board as we push our city forward in kind of environmental preservation and historic preservation. I'd love to just get your thoughts on how we could do that as a collective.
Well, and board member, I thank you for that question. There's basically two opportunities to be able to do that. A workshop would be a great way for everyone to be hearing these ideals and putting all the ideas on the table all at the same time. Of course, as things come your way, we do encourage you to forward that information to us or at least to staff's attention. And then hopefully what we would like to do is go through the information and then present it to you as a discussion item at one of the meetings, one of the future meetings. We are in the month of June. I'm not sure if we have any particular items other than the one that was deferred that we will have a July meeting. If there are some other items that will be added to that agenda, we will definitely have a July meeting. I know in most cases, the boards go on a hiatus during August, which is something that's well needed and well deserved. So if you have any other questions or concerns relating to that, what I would like to do is probably further down into the year, we could look at having a workshop once we've gone through all of our, through the August season and the budget season in September, probably like around October or November, if that's not too far out, to have a workshop and we can put all of those particular ideals and stuff on the table. But I know, sometimes if I don't write it down right then and there, it's lost in the wind. So please write down your ideals, write down your information, email it into us. And, you can even say, could be a subject matter that's a part of the workshop. And we'll go ahead and put that together.
Absolutely. Thank you. And then can I ask that, and we might have this and it could be my fault. Do we have a schedule for our remaining meetings for this board season? And if not, can I ask that we go ahead and set like just a schedule? And if there's nothing that, if there's no resolution that needs to be presented or there's no agenda items, then we can cancel that meeting, but at least we have in advance kind of planned out, you know, our meetings for the next year or the next 9 months, whatever that is. Can I ask that we pull that together for all of the board members?
Yes, we can. Generally, we do meet on the third Thursday. of
It's
each month.
normally, yes, sir, ma'am, it's normally on the third Thursday of each month. However, it's based on the applicants that we receive. So if any information that Mr. Lee received, that's normally how it goes unless Mr. Gay or you all have anything, as you said, to suggest to bring before the board.
Thank you for that. That answers my questions. I
Okay,
appreciate it.
thank you.
Mr. Gay, I'd like to thank you and Ms. Hall for providing this to us. This is fantastic, working in public relations. This is right up my alley as a front page feature. It's niche, but nevertheless, people are reading it. I also want to give special thanks, although he's not here, to Mr. Delane, who helped to make this happen with Matt Marino. Who also involved me in the email to acquire some of the visual assets for this. So ultimately, it was a team effort, and the result of that makes
I
our
thought I saw
city.
your fingerprints on it.
Just a little bit, but Mr. Delane, we're happy to have him back. And I know that you are too. So I think that we have a great coalition here. And I just want to not officially second, but to resonate with what Ms. Williams had discussed in terms of kind of setting out a framework for the remainder of the year. I know it's contingent on resolutions or things brought to our attention, but I'd like to think that between myself and some of the other board members and sending emails to staff, that we have enough that we can space out over the course of the next year or more. One of my immediate observations, having acquired a home, being inspired by the fact that it has a plaque on it. I've noticed that so many of the homes that are very much registered sites, I mentioned CE Long's house just around the corner on Shahar, does not have a plaque on it. And for a variety of reasons, I understand that over the course of the years, aesthetics change, theft has occurred, as I've learned from firsthand experience. But nevertheless, it would be great for us to have a reasonable discussion of what, I don't want to call it assets, but more so resources that we have at our disposal to reinvigorate a program that, I know that you were very intimately familiar and involved with from the beginning, that the archives of Emily Perry at History Miami that I will proffer to you for this report help to inform. But nevertheless, is kind of a more immediate action item. Homeowners, like the newest one at Long's house, are very much interested. It was verbally spoken to me that they would like a plaque. And I just don't know how that was done in the past, how we can reinvigorate that, even revitalizing some of the existing ones that are almost unrecognizable due to the elements. I don't know if there's resources to be able to restore the existing ones and to put new ones on the homes that are deserving of them as we continue this discussion about kind of revisiting those sites and looking ahead to the 20 or more that might be eligible.
I think the manager wants to make a statement regarding that.
Absolutely. I think this is a wonderful recommendation and appropriate for legislation. So I would recommend that you move forward on one of two options. One would be that you pass a motion to make this recommendation to the commission for them to vote en masse, or approach an individual member of the commission to move this forward with legislation, to bring it forward on the vote.
That smile says it all.
Madam Chair, if you remember, Mr. Gay, last year I submitted a grant application to the villagers for funding for plaques for landmarks.
Yes.
And it was denied last year, but it was kept, I was told that they felt the city wasn't quite ready. And I think it's time to submit it again. The grants are due October 1st. And what the grant was for $5,000 to create a plaque, make a mold, make the plaques, and have them available to this board to award as houses became historic sites. So if you all are interested in that, I'll resubmit that legislation or that grant application. I have to say, I do have a little influence with that group because I've been with them since they were founded 54 years ago. So,
Madam Chair,
Wow.
I'd like to support this recommendation. We actually have a grant writer on staff that I would love to make
grant's
available.
all written. I just have to change the date.
Okay.
I mean, can we make a motion tonight?
I was thinking for him to do that. I kind of-
Ms. McIntyre is our pseudo grant writer for the
Sorry.
board. You are our pseudo grant writer for the board. So we appreciate all the efforts.
Well,
you
I don't want to
provide.
find some non-pseudo real money.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
can we make a motion tonight to support her grant?
I'm in support of it.
Madam Chair? This should come as a resolution so that you have everything spelled out and you also have the application. So you all need to review that. So that would be the appropriate way to do it.
So we can move forward.
So we can have that prepared for the next board meeting.
I would like to ask if that could be possible by a July meeting, maybe, or?
Yes.
Okay. So I see there's a lot of excitement on the board right now. You can't stay still. Very much needed. I thank you for writing that grant. I think all of the time and effort that's been put by Mr. Gay, your office, your team, city manager, everyone with what they're doing here. I'm looking at this and I'm just looking over in awe, like this is really pulling our city forward. So I really thank you for all of that hard work. July meeting, Thursday, correct?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Okay. Will there be any more comments, discussion? With that being said, I'm going to move for adjournment.
Second.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay, meeting adjourned, 7:27.